the level of your transparency will determine the level of your transformation. And I'm going to say it for me too. The level of my transparency has determined the level of my transformation.
Oh,
So there's that thing that anybody can have where it's like it's really hard to say it. Like everything in your everything negative, like that little devil that's sitting on your shoulder, that's how they show it in cartoons,
right.
is trying to prevent you from saying that out loud. Because if you expose that shadow out loud, now the light is on it and it can be transmuted.
All right. Welcome back to the next episode of the Ignite the King podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Diamond. And do I have a special guest today, Eugene Trey Ford III, senior member in Ignite the King, here to share some wisdom. Welcome, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is, as I said, when we were preparing for the episode, this is a first, but definitely not a last in the Trey Ford spotlight because, man, you are doing some huge things in the world. St. John's River Keepers, Duval Soil and Water Conservation, just bringing so much energy to your community and to the Ignite community. So happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again. It's my honor.
Yeah, brother. Well, let's get into it. This episode is all about the recent immersion we have every season, as you know, because you're on staff. We have these immersions. So I always like to do a pre episode and what we're getting ready for, and then a little post debrief. And just, I mean, so much happens. Like, how can we not share the wild things that happen at these immersions in men's lives? So I hope to bring our listeners into a taste of what happens at those immersions, but more importantly, the ripple of energy in men's lives post immersion and the real transformations and changes that happen. And you're right in there on the front lines doing the work yourself. And yeah, so let's just get into that. And I think we'll just be able to really hit on what's going to serve a man out there, like what's possible in his life. So
Definitely.
yeah. So just in that vein, what comes to mind right away of an overall energy, an overarching, story energy, healing energy that came out of this last in-person event?
Well, while you were talking, I was thinking, wow, this is the fourth year for me as far as coming to a King immersion. So I've been to
Yeah.
a King immersion every year for the last 4 years. And there's a lot that can happen in 4 years. Obviously, there's a lot that can happen in a year. But just how different of a place I was when I came to that first one versus now is what's really coming to mind. And I think what was special about this one and special about the King immersion in general is that it is the culmination of the other archetypes, and it's the calling. I feel like, since we work on, and I don't know if people have heard on other episodes about soul styles and standards, and I mean, this is how you set up your
Woven it in a little
structure to
bit.
go into the year, or to
Yeah.
go into your life, really. So I like the King immersion for that reason, because it's a very bird's eye view. And I know this season I was really focused on order and where I was lacking order in my life. And as soon as I claimed that, hey, I'm going to get more order in my life, like everywhere where there was a disorder became blaringly obvious, like a sore thumb. And we were to work through some of those things, not just through the season, but also at the immersion. So,
This is the man who just welcomed his fifth child into the world and still chopping wood, carrying water every single day. So
right.
some powerful things in there. And you said something I want us to go deeper on, this thing about claiming. And as a king, we claim something, and when we do, and you do, you see how things organize for you. Sometimes in the form of a
Absolutely.
gift, sometimes in form of a lesson, right? Sometimes in the form of a challenge, all for your growth ultimately. But and being able to see it in that way, because oftentimes we can think of them as circumstances, but maybe go deeper into this claiming part. That might be new to some men out there. Like, as a king, I'm claiming something. Might be like, okay, that's some jargon, but what does that actually mean?
So what claiming means to me is I feel like we all have this inner voice that is letting us know that there's some type of purpose that we have, or there's some type of transition that we need to make. For me, I was transitioning over the last year from being a single man into entering into the family life again, and that's as somebody who was a divorcee. So I had some hurt around that and some disbelief around that. but there's the calling, and then I would say claiming is like answering the call,
Mm,
but then there's still work to be done after that. And
yeah.
so I'll use a relationship as an example. I felt the urge to uh, get out of some activities that I know were childish. And that's another part of being a king is and just being a man is letting go of childish things and walking in level of maturity that I wasn't walking in, even in my mid 30s. And I started to feel that calling to um, really raise the standard of my life. And part of that is, in my perspective, is divine union and finding a wife, finding that queen. And when I did that, um, again, like you said, how things start to organize, I
Hmm.
started to realize how long I had been in this lifestyle of single and partying and doing things that are more for younger men, and it has its place or whatnot, so that you
Hmm.
learn. But or so that, and that's one area that I learned in. But coming to a place where, hey, in order to build a kingdom, there has to be a foundation. There has to be a familial structure. That's the core. That's the epicenter. And in order for you to do qualify, or in order for me to qualify for the right type of queen, there were some things I had to clean up in my life. So the first girlfriend that I had made that clearly obvious, and it was sharp for me to experience that, how far back I had fallen um, from knowing how to be a good boyfriend, a good partner, a good family man. And then it started to clean up.
Yeah.
I think I started to go to church at that time and
Hmm.
just feed my mind with the right things, not the some of the music that I was listening to in the club scene and on the radio or whatever. I started to protect my ear gates a lot better. I started to protect my eye gates a lot better. The way I'm
Yep.
scrolling through Instagram, looking at different things and absorbing these images of women and different things like that, that's not conducive to being in a committed divine union.
No.
That's just a recipe for disaster eventually.
Yeah.
So I would say
Powerful.
that claim, and that's a strong claim, because that's one of the most, if
Yeah.
not the most important claim you can make, is, hey, I'm ready for my queen.
And how many men we've seen come through our programs that this is absolutely at the crux of their challenges is being in
Right.
a committed relationship and still being pulled by all the vices and the images and the shadow things that take them out. And
Right.
it's
And
definitely,
as I was coming into my first King immersion, I had already missed the opportunity to clean that up. So
right.
I had already it already got to the point where the divorce process has already started, because I'd already
Right.
failed that mission, because I wasn't doing the things necessary to keep my energy clean and keep my mind in space, and my soul clean of that dysfunctional type of messaging that's out there in the world.
Well, the beautiful thing about life is that you've been granted a second opportunity. So
Right.
that's the beautiful thing about life. Things go in cycles. There's a couple of things you said in there, and I know we're starting to get a little bit deeper in this, which is great. Overall, this overarching thing I hear is this is maturity, is this maturation process, specifically for you through 4. I mean, you've been in this group just about 4 years. The next immersion in August, you'll be celebrating your 4-year anniversary. It's like going to college, man. It's a big commitment. It's very unusual to have a group like this where men are repeating year over year. I feel honored and blessed. It tells me we're doing something really well. And there is a maturation process because, as you self admitted, that's not how you came in, and having to rebuild and to see that process over that time has just been really extraordinary. I loved how you differentiated between like the calling and the claim and how they're two very different things. That's really powerful because a lot of men will get the calling. A lot of men will have the come to Jesus moment, right? A lot of men will have the like, enough of this, like I'm sick of my own bullshit kind of energy. And we know that like that's just like the floor because then you're going to be met with, okay, oh yeah, you're going to make a claim. So
Right.
here you're going to have to face that. In SRI, we would say like stage 5. Okay, now you got to merge with that tough part. And that's where a lot of men will recycle back down to suffering because it's hard. And that's the hard part. It's one thing to build up enough courage to say, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go to an immersion. I'm going to make a change in my life. And then let's check in a month and how's it going, right? And not only the discipline to stay with something, but to be able to face those deeper parts. And I'm sure over your years you've had to face deeper and deeper parts of what's come up. So in that vein, I'm curious, what things like that you saw specifically at this last immersion. A number of men had pretty deep, powerful experiences. Some men that were newer, some men that have been around. I'm thinking of one man in particular. I'm curious if that's what you're picking up on, and just to really speak to the level of transformation that can occur one of these weekends or something you saw.
Definitely. So there's a scripture that came up in my mind as we're discussing that helps me, and it's a dog returning into its vomit is the same as a fool returning to their folly. And
Mm,
what's coming up for me is um, we have men just throughout the entire throughout this King immersion, but throughout the entire time I've been a part of the Brotherhood, who have overcome some strong things from different types of addictions. And when I think about returning to your folly, I'm thinking about it coming up in just a little bit of a different way to sneak in and get you back off track or get me back off track or anyone. And
right.
so one of the things I was thinking of
Like a different
is
flavor of the same thing.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So one of the things I was thinking of is, you know, a porn addiction turning into a social media addiction that's a little bit different,
Yeah.
but
Tangential.
it's now it's not a fantasy of porn, it's a
Right.
specific person, which in a lot of cases could be even worse because now there's like there's a potential of this actually happening.
Right.
And so I'm thinking about some work where a man had to, and I don't know how specific. I know we're not going to say any names here, but
No,
there
we'll
was
definitely protect the privacy of our men.
right, 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 right.
But just to follow
But
on this thread that you're talking about, it's like the vice can change a little flavor, and you think like it's not there, but yet it's hitting on exactly the same pathways. It's firing off exactly the same neurochemicals, right? It's keeping us in
very deep,
that same feedback loop, and it's very deep, right?
right?
And the man we're talking about, it's like as we got deeper and deeper and deeper, we saw really how deep it went, and I mean, it brought our whole group to a whole different level because the way things started to connect. We talk a lot about connecting the dots, and we start to realize those traumas are there, and when we can start linking them up, it's like Tetris. It like just evaporates, right? So that's the way I see it.
Definitely, and I'll commend that work because the level of your transparency will determine the level of your transformation.
Oh,
So
say
this
that
is something
again.
that
Wait, if for all you
anybody
guys
could
out
apply
there,
that.
say that again because for you men out
I
there
said
that haven't met Trey yet,
yeah, put that in
you're gonna want to
King Trey version.
rewind on some of these episodes. Go ahead, say that
so
again,
so
please.
the level, and I'm going to say it for me too, the level of my transparency has determined the level of my transformation.
Oh,
So there's that thing that anybody can have where it's like it's really hard to say it, like everything in your everything negative, like that little devil that's sitting on your shoulder, that's how they show it in cartoons,
right.
is trying to prevent you from saying that out loud, because if you expose that shadow out loud, now the light is on it and it can be transmuted.
Yeah.
And so it was like with this specific work in this weekend, it was like so deep in there because it's like, man, if this gets exposed, then it's going to get eradicated.
Right.
And it was so subtle. It was like something that anybody could, anybody could. I'll just call it out, And this is the problem with being super promiscuous in your youth is it's easy to think about that old girl from college or that old relationship and start to get into a comparison trend,
Mhm.
which is terrible. Comparisons aren't fair to anyone.
Right.
And
I'm sure
so
there's a
it
lot of
was
men
just
that are feeling that.
just an old fling that there may have been some lingering potential about that coming to pass again. And this is somebody who won the game of life, so to speak, married, child, beautiful family, doing well career wise. Like you've already won,
Right.
but you're thinking about this one chick from college has gone off and living her own life.
And what we
And
discovered was it wasn't even about that, right?
exactly,
That's I
exactly,
always like to say at these immersions, it's like there's what you think you're coming for, what gets revealed as you start to do the work, and then while you're really there, right? That third layer. And that's what started to happen for this man was that third layer shit.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And those thoughts are, I mean, those thoughts are very sneaky, and they'll compound over time. So just
Yeah.
having that little thought, and then maybe going to the social media page, getting those images in there, and before you know it, um, either back on something like porn, or maybe reaching out, or there's so many ways that it could um combust from that point. And it's just
Mhm.
such a, it's a tiny seed in the very beginning. It's like there's seeds of faith, but then there's also these seeds of doubt and destruction as well, or seeds
Mm.
of, the opposite of what you want, that are like the weeds in the garden of your mind. So it's just super important to protect your soul.
Whew. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, right? That's what we like to
That's it.
say. Yeah, well, and
I'm
as
a
you get
farmer, so I know it never stops. The
it never
pests,
stops.
the
Yeah,
the
keep blowing
the
weeds.
weeding, the deer. Oh man, if you don't manage your garden, it'll get overrun by something.
Yep. And along that same analogy, it just takes that tending. It takes and working with what season you're in. When you're
Right,
in winter, you're not trying to plant, right?
right,
So you got to know what to do in each season, similar to the work and these archetypes. And like when we're in the king season, we're doing king shit.
right,
And we're bringing order to our kingdom. And that was something else I heard you say that really has been the foundation or bedrock of the king energy is there's got to be order. There's got to be what I bring to that to be that like stable energy. And we saw that a lot, I believe, this last weekend too, with men, not just from a financial standpoint and being that provider, but really holding the boundaries. We talked a lot about
right,
standards. We talked a lot about boundaries, right? Core values, all these things that your decision making as a king and having those defined and how often
absolutely.
men don't have their standards defined, don't have their boundaries defined. And those of you listening, I'm using my hands to show like the standards being the floor, the boundaries being the walls. Like that's your etherical kingdom, right? And then order in your own home, your physical home. That's your really your as a king. That's your first kingdom right now. So we talked about that, and ultimately, and you can there's a little buffet of choice for you. We also talked about the king's blessing and receiving blessing in this overflowing cup because so men are just constantly giving out of a cup that's empty, right?
Right.
And feeling overwhelmed, stressed, tired, all the things, and reclaiming their joy. That was the claim I saw a lot of too, is finding this joy again so that they can give from an overflowing cup. So those are a few of the themes I saw. I'm curious your any insights on those or something else that is popping for you.
Yeah, I'll speak to boundaries, because I see boundaries and blessings being connected, because when boundaries aren't held, that's when the cup does begin to empty out, and not being able to give from an overflow. And I love the physicality of our immersions, from the standpoint of being able to work out, but also King of the Ring is something that we do where we get to push each other around a little bit, and we're brothers, so we're not trying to hurt each other, but definitely trying to move energy. And the
Yeah.
way I saw that translate with one of the men's work was, after we did King of the Ring, we ate breakfast, and then we got to sit down and start some discussions. And that's when that man felt comfortable to call out where people have been overstepping his boundaries in his life, and maybe it had happened, a reflection of that had happened maybe at the immersion, where people are either giving advice without him asking, or telling him what to do with his vision.
Yeah.
And being able to get physical and being able to move energy physically, I think I think it benefits the ability to hold boundaries in a more corporate setting or in a relationship setting, because your mind has shifted into, I guess, some level of dominance. And there's all kind of, somebody else can speak to what your mind does when you exercise and stuff like that, but it's real. Getting that
Yeah.
exercise physically will help somebody, or it helps me hold my boundaries in the world where we're not pushing each other around physically, but needing to
Yeah.
hold a standard up. As
Oh,
far
well,
as porn, go ahead, go ahead.
let's double tap on this because this is important. And we're right like about the halfway mark of the episode, so it's like a perfect time. Like, let's go all the way into this. And what I hear a lot of what you're saying is it's the king energy, it's the tyrant, it's the weakling, and with boundaries, if we haven't decided what our boundaries are, what our standards are, often people will over step our boundaries that we haven't communicated or even defined, and then we get upset,
Right.
and then we'll either acquiesce our energy or we will be a tyrant and try to overpower or dominate. And it's important for men to know where those boundaries are, and men don't have a lot of places where they can exercise those boundaries, especially in a physical way that isn't end up with really bad consequences, right? Because
Right.
often
Right.
men will exert their fears or their dominance through physicality, right? And that often ends with death, destruction, jail, all kinds of problems. Where, yeah, men being able in a healthy environment move that energy where, like you said, we're not trying to hurt each other, but I need to feel resistance. I need to feel where a boundary is. I need someone that can match me where I'm at and make me have to break through and overcome. Therein lies also how you access the important part is the raw emotion. Men need to be often pushed physically to respond emotionally. Women are the other way, like they respond emotionally first and then physically, is my experience. So men, it takes a lot to break into that, and you have to have a physical component. And how we do that, whether it's working out, whether it's King of the Ring style stuff, whether it's combatives, boxing, there's something that you have to do to break through that. Now the goal is to be able to access those feelings otherwise, but yeah, there has to be some resistance, specifically as you're mentioning for that man. It was like it allowed him to actually feel his power in a positive way, where he wasn't consumed by how people were pushing him around, but he's actually doing it from an empowered place. So you
Right.
said, I don't know how the
And
brain works, but
he was pushing some people around.
he was,
It was
oh,
exciting to
he
see.
was the one that
I got hip tossed myself.
he was the one that demanded we do it, right?
Yeah, man.
He knew the medicine he needed, right? And you talked about about all the brain chemicals. So in the exercise, the dominant neurochemical we're releasing is endorphins, and endorphins are our natural painkillers like morphine. So we feel good. We Pain
Right.
goes away, and not just physical pain, all pain. So it lowers the boundaries of the walls we put up because that thing hurts so bad. So when we're feeling
Right.
good, we feel like I could feel this right now. I could go there because I'm not in pain. There's like a gateway that opens up. And then you feel empowered, and empowered sets off, oxytocin and serotonin and more of the like long lasting like mood and feeling good. I mean, it's a cascade of things that happen just to get into the neuroscience a little bit, because then that man felt empowered about, he felt empowered that he could address it energetically
Right.
and get to the other side of it and move that energy, because it was intense.
Had we not done that activity, we would have never known, and that would have been suppressed even further in my perspective. Another
100%.
thing that came up while you were talking was how sovereign, definition is important in sovereignty, defining your sovereignty.
Yeah.
And one of my old pastors used to say, the ability to define gives us the ability to fulfill. So this the lack of clarity that I've had in my life has made it hard to even hold boundaries, because I don't even know what my boundaries are. I
Hmm.
just don't get
Right.
ticked off here and there. But
Yeah.
it's like unexpressed expectations, and it can happen in a romantic relationship, business relationship, where there's no definition, there's no clarity, and you're feeling a certain way, and then not even expressing that. And so that's big.
Guilty.
It's right. It's interesting how they're all connected, but I almost see, the king as the four corners: sovereignty, order, blessing, and what's the fourth one? I lost it.
Legacy.
Legacy. Oh, the
Yeah.
most the end of the in a way, the end of the four. So
Yeah.
um
Well,
sovereignty, order, blessing, legacy being the four legs of a table.
I love it. Uh, can you speak more to this unexpressed expectation? Because I think, and I chimed in, was like guilty because I'm holding my hand up. I've
Right.
done that so many times in my life where this, I don't communicate what this expectation is. And I get upset at that other person for not following the rule that I never told them about, or I never
Yeah.
defined really for myself in a healthy way. Right. It's all mostly been out of hurt. So
That's
yeah,
the
I think
easiest
this could be
way
really
for
relevant.
me in my life to get into like a pendulum swing of weakling to tyrant, because it's, I think I and maybe other people can relate to walking around like, people should just know that. I mean, isn't it obvious? And I even oftentimes blame women for this, but do the same exact thing as far as like not just telling people exactly what it is that you want, exactly what it is that you expect, making your
Yeah.
expectations clear, so that you can inspect what you expect. And one of the areas that I love that I got it right here. I love that we got these
Oh
workbooks to
yeah.
really
Show up
get in
those
there.
notebooks for the people watching.
Oh yeah, what is your code? What is my code of conduct? And
Yeah.
these are honestly things I don't know what percentage of the earth has done it, but I know it's 5% or less, 2% or less that has a written code of conduct to align your life to. And I know they probably can't see it that well, but
Yeah.
your what's your king's code, what's your soul style. These are the things that will allow you to say what you will and won't
Right.
tolerate in your life,
You gotta
and
define it
people
ahead
need
of
to know
time.
about it so they can so that they can abide by it or suffer the consequence, which may be no more access to you, or there's just whatever that consequence is. And I know in my life there's been times where I've not expressed a boundary and then over express it after it had been breached multiple times, and it come off as a shock to that person. And it's like, that's not fair, uh to 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 let somebody be blind in what it is that you're expecting and then to react to them when they didn't even know. I think people do it to their children too. I know I've done it with my children before, where it's like, I didn't
Mhm.
really explicitly say what these rules were or what I was expecting. And then for me to be frustrated, that's not fair to
Oh,
them. They're new on earth to a degree.
and in
And people
parenting,
are new to us.
I often find that we'll contradict ourselves often. One day it's one
Absolutely.
rule, and the next day it's another rule,
Absolutely. It's a
and kids
moving
remember
target for
that
them.
stuff. So
Yeah, definitely a moving target. And I would say don't let it be a moving target. Or I'm working on not letting it be a moving target. Like what's the minimum, what's the maximum in this area, and let it be made known. And I think people like others who express boundaries because they know what they're dealing with.
oh yeah, it's so important, and people respect it. But again, so many people just again, how many people have the workbook that they're actually defining these things? So I think most people just never define it, and then even so have a real trouble communicating it. And then you got to hold the boundary, and that's a whole nother
Right.
level where people are still going to push your boundaries, and you gotta dig in. I see with my son where, man, like he'll push, and we joke that like, man, other kids don't stand a chance because I'm he'll wear me down sometimes, and I'm
Right.
pretty strong in my boundaries, but still, holding a boundary is, and then learning how to do that, because if we don't really define it, we don't really communicate it. But some people will just, I'll hold the boundary, and it'll come off very sharp, it'll come off very terse, and often it'll be off-putting to many people. So like, how do we hold that boundary? What energy we bring to it? What really matches the energy of the situation? We're constantly dealing with things and dealing with conflict where we have to exert ourselves on some level, whether it's dealing with a business and a company, whether it's dealing interpersonally, whether it's dealing with, any kind of interaction that could. So it's like the synergy between the three, and
Right.
defining it, like you say, is like step one. And where else
and
you
and I
doing
feel
that?
like this is for somebody who's watching for some reason. But one of the easiest or smallest ways you can hold a boundary is having somebody say your name correctly. I have people call me Troy, and I say, "Hey, no, it's Trey." But there's people who will let people call them the wrong name over and over and
Oh,
over.
I
It's like,
get
"Oh,
Mike
it's
all the
fine, it's
time.
fine," and it's like, where else is that coming up in your life? Where it's like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine," until
Woo,
it's not.
till it's not. The weakling becomes the tyrant.
Uh,
You push a weakling, you find a tyrant, you poke a tyrant, you find a weakling. It's often saying the king energy, it's the one shadow that we vacillate very quickly between, this tyrant weakling energy. And I hear the pleaser in what you're saying. And again, I'm raising my hand because I know these energies well in my own life, where acquiescing energy, it's a real thing, and until it's not. And then we explode on people and can destroy in 5 minutes what maybe took 30 years to build. It's intense.
Definitely,
Well, let's shift
definitely.
gears a little bit. Unless you want to share anything else on that. I saw you wanting to
No, let's
share.
shift. Let's shift. I was
Uh,
actually trying to think of what we you had laid
uh,
it out. There was a few things that
yeah,
you had, and we jumped on the boundaries first. So
yeah. So what was coming up for me? is there's a real theme around joy, and I also I
Mm.
want to give men out there listening that have been maybe following us for a little bit, or even if you're a new listener, uh, our flagship program is our immersions, right? So men often it's sometimes could be like this big secret, like what happens there, and to a point you have to go in without the expectation, but I would like to give men like just a little glimpse into the experience. And what was coming up for me was around joy and how, as a king, we got to fill our cup up. And I think we did a couple of really pretty cool things, if you ask me, around filling the cup up. And maybe you could share a little bit about that.
You know, one of the as somebody who's been in the brotherhood for now close to 4 years, uh, there's joy just simply in brotherhood. Seeing the
Hmm.
men who you haven't seen in a while, we stay connected throughout the weeks and months, but there's just a certain joy to camaraderie that's there. And you see it when, and this speaks to the emergence too. You see it when, people have been around for a year or 2 years, and people you've seen transform and that you're proud of, and you get to break bread with them because we're all living our separate lives. A lot of us are not in the same city or state even,
Right.
and contentment comes to mind because I'm glad we're using like joy. And the reason I said contentment is because it's not happy, which is what people are looking for. And you've
Right.
said it many times, happy is
Happenstance.
happenstance, but
Yeah.
um, joy, in my perspective, comes from within as well as contentment. So part of my work for the immersion was to continue to chop wood and carry water and not get weary and well doing, mastering the mundane. And as somebody who has a little bit of an entertainment background, and I like the flash and the movies and film and comedy have all been a part of my life and work. Farming is very delayed gratification. Working for a nonprofit organization, installing vertical oyster gardens, that there's going to be years before we know the effects of this thing, but we're planting the seed right now. And so joy, I think, is derived within the work. It's not because of a result. And that's what I see in the immersions. Is there's a joy of to sit down and have breakfast with a man you haven't talked to in a while or ever,
Hmm.
and have a new relationship get built and formed over breaking some bread. I
Yep.
mean, that's, and like I said, I think we talked earlier about the diversity of the men. There's people from all different backgrounds, different
Hmm.
work uh, industries, and things like that. And so, to be able to be around brothers, masculine men who are doing the work as well, there's a lot of joy there. But then you incorporated some fun. So we had a DJ
Yeah.
doing during an entrainment session, which I'm sure if they watch through the podcast, they'll hear a little bit about network chiropractic care.
Yep.
Um, we had a live performance with
Yeah.
phenomenal, very, very talented
Adam Knight.
artists. Yeah, Adam Knight. Shout out to Adam.
Yeah.
And we got to just hang out and chill sometimes too. I think there was a little bit of joy from King of the Ring too, being able to push each other around.
Yeah,
Um,
I often will tell men that come to the immersion, I'll say, yeah, it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, and ultimately it's fun, right? The transformation, the embodiment, everything that culminates, it's an embodied feeling, like
Fulfillment.
it's a rite of passage, and
Yep.
it's an arc of a story you have to go through, and it's a roller coaster ride, and sometimes you're screaming down the mountain, sometimes you're going through a valley, and at the end it's like exhilarating, and that's the kind of the arc of energy of emotion throughout an immersion, but it's to come out the other side like, all right, I'm glad I went on that ride. And
It's easy to joke about something once you've worked through it, and it's easy to see how
oh
funny
yeah,
it is that I was acting this way, or that this was holding me up.
oh yeah,
This was my Achilles heel.
well you
But you can't joke about it as easily when you're in it.
or even
And
before
so,
it. I mean, how many men have we seen back out, right? Where
right,
the energy gets high, and then they just somehow they don't show up. Thankfully, that doesn't happen as much, but it does. It happened this last immersion, and it was just interesting to see like what comes up for men when they get close to knowing. And you said it earlier in the episode, where it's like knowing you have to make that transformation. Like now you've brought it to the light, you can't unsee it, and
right.
you have to like consciously choose to like avoid that part of yourself, and that'll eat at you after a while. So you have to be ready is another piece I think we can hit on. But back to this joy thing for a moment, because These immersions they're fun, and they're fun to put together, and you hit on a couple of the pieces. I wasn't expecting it I was expecting you to say that, but not about breaking bread and being community and support. And I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Because so much of what we need as men is to be in community. Most men are living, like you said, different cities. We don't live near each other. A lot of times men feel alone. They feel like they're on their own little island, even within their own family. So we need that kind of brotherhood support that I don't, we're normalizing, right? That's what this
Right.
group's all about, is to say men need this. We all need it. And to be able to do that in a way where it's like, yeah, I get to live with you essentially for a weekend and not be on my phone, to be supporting each other, to be going deep in our own inner work, and that bonds a man with another man. I mean, that we've seen over and over again. And I want to say another shout out to Adam Knight, because this performance, we brought him in. I had seen him perform a couple times. He's a local Austin musician. He tours nationally, I believe. Shout out to Adam again. And I asked him to come in to perform, and really at the time, not knowing how the depth of knowledge he had in men's work, shadow work, his own transformation, and how he's turned all those stories into songs, and just gave us I'll say riveting performance, and impacted many men, and was a huge part of some men's healing for the weekend. And
Definitely.
that's what I love about the immersion. It's like, okay, here's this thing. I know it's going to have some impact, but I couldn't really, and I said it a couple times after the immersion, I had no idea it was going to have that much of an impact. I thought it was just going to be a lot of times I do things because I just think they're cool. And if I think
Right.
they're
Right.
cool, I
Right.
hope everyone else will. But wound up being something super impactful. And I love, he read the energy of the room perfectly. He played to it, his music, his storytelling, all of that. But the point is, these things that come in at an immersion that just become like so perfect for that immersion. Even the hard
Right.
stuff, even when there's breakdown, can become a huge advantage. We
Right.
saw that big time.
Art is a major translator, and it's for me it'll affect somebody who you at least expect,
Right.
just because it's speaking to them so deeply, because you never know what's on the deepest part of somebody's mind or heart that they haven't addressed yet, or that they've been trying to suppress, or that they've been wanting to deal with but just couldn't find the exact words or method to do it. And it'll be some instruments, a sound, a
Yep.
painting, things like that. That's why I always look forward to the lover immersion, because art, we're receiving and giving of the art at
Yeah.
the lover immersions each time, and
Trey's letting the
each
cat
time
out of the
that
bag.
has like a like I remember one time a brother was singing Moulin Rouge, the least likely brother that I could have expected to sing the entire Moulin Rouge. But as funny as it was, it impacted me because I was like, man, I didn't know like you had this part of you. Like
Right.
that was very
That's the
deep,
thing,
and
right? We all have
romantic.
these parts. They need a
Right,
stage. Men need women. We need a place to go express ourselves authentically like that, and
right.
it needs to push us a little bit. So Trey's letting the cat out of the bag a little bit. We have an annual performance talent show at our Lover Immersion. That'll be the one coming up in August. Trey's always the creative director and MC of that program. I'm looking forward to that already. I'm just imagining
Yes,
some of the things that are going to be coming
it's
down the
gonna be
pike for
good.
that. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. Uh, so as we start to bring this particular episode to a close, any final thoughts? We've hit a lot of good places today. Some of the deeper lessons and learnings from the immersion, what it really means to be a king, the transformation process. You dropped some big nuggets for everyone out there today. So, any final thoughts, ways men could either take action in their own life, or some tactical, practical way to onboard some of this information from today?
I would say something that's coming up is conflict resolution. And there's internal conflict that can be resolved. When we were talking about boundaries, I was thinking about my number one boundary breacher is myself. How many
Oh,
times do I say, "Hey, I'm gonna fast," or "I'm gonna do this," or "I'm gonna do that," and I'm gonna wait another day, or I can,
raising my
let
hand.
me amend that. Let me amend that commitment just a little bit because I'm uncomfortable or because it's inconvenient.
Mm,
And so resolving conflict in oneself without being too too sharp even with oneself. We did at the immersion it came up a couple of different ways, and it always comes up, how are you talking to yourself, and what are the things that you're saying to yourself? Sometimes you're putting those daggers in more than whatever family
Woo.
member
Yep.
was doing it. So resolving internal conflict and then resolving external conflict in a healthy way. We got to see that played out where there was a clear antagonist, and they were able to come to terms with the fact that they were projecting and that there was internal conflict in them that they were pushing out onto another person. And we got to see that person stand up and hold a boundary. And
Yeah.
there was times in that where it seemed like they were going to let it slide and not really hold it to the intensity that it needed to be. And I think that's what being a king is anytime you watch like knights with shining armor, there's always conflict, and it's how is that
Yep.
conflict resolved in an integrous way, and in a way that invokes blessing after in the aftermath. And so that's what I'd say take with this. The nugget I'd say take with this the most is, what does that look like in your life, and where do you need help in that? And support is always needed in conflict from some, whether it's from a higher being or whether it's
Hmm.
from your joint beings here on earth. Support is available, and why not take it? It's crazy not to.
Oh, love that. Yeah, we saw that play out for sure. So powerful,
Yeah,
powerful
I
stuff.
would say lone wolf is like the number one. There's a lot of them. I think there's five that we talk about, but
Yeah.
lone wolfing it. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think somebody used to say a lone wolf is a dead wolf,
Yeah.
and there's support out there.
Yeah, men need support. We got to untrain the part of us that says we not only don't need help but won't ask for help. That's being too proud. So that's a huge
Yep.
takeaway as a king. I love that. I love that. Well, man, as I said at the beginning, this is definitely not the last of Trey Ford on this Ignite the King podcast. Thank you. Your wisdom has been extraordinary. Let everyone know out there where they can find you. You're involved in a lot of different projects. Black Films Matter, Duval Soil and Water, St. John's River Keepers.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you and the work that you're doing in the world?
Definitely. I'm going to shout out the website, www.floridafishpepperco.com. It's a business league of people who grow plants, dedicating some of their operation to growing this really cool pepper. It's kind of spicy, but it's flavorful, and it's an opportunity for, I would say, the little guy in farming to bring something to market before somebody else. So we wanted to be the next jalapeno or habanero, the next popular pepper, and
Yeah.
reap the benefits of that financially. And on Instagram, Gene for the Peeps, Gene, the number four, Peeps. That's Eugene for the third for the people. And yeah, I'll put those two out there. You can probably find all my other stuff through
Yeah.
those two
Well,
pages.
we'll definitely add it to the show. Now, I didn't even
Yeah,
mention
that'll work.
Florida Fish Pepper Co. of like the other 4 or 5 things that you're up to, man.
Right,
On top of
right,
being
right.
a family man and with a newborn and all that. Yeah, the fish pepper, fascinating story. Bringing it back. I mean, talk about a king bringing back a lineage in a positive way. Again, we have a lot more to talk about, so we can get maybe
Definitely.
devote an episode to generative agriculture and farming and your trade association another time. But thank you so much for being here. Much love to you. Thank you for everything you add to our group and to our brotherhood and our immersions. And men out there, if and when you come, you'll get to meet this man and be served by him in a big way. So with that, we are complete. Aho, have a beautiful day.